The wait is over. It is a perfect day for hockey. Hockey is back because it is October. Hi, everyone. I'm Erik Karlsson from NBC Sports Washington, and welcome to my reading room, where I do have some leather-bound books. We're going to go around the region on this live stream here on the My Teams app. We're going to go to every place that NBC Sports has a regional. We're going to be in Boston. We're going to be in Chicago, in the Bay Area with the Sharks. We're going to be all over, up and down and all around as we get you ready for opening night tonight for the first time since 62-63 and just the second time ever. The last two Stanley Cup champs start the season. It's the Caps and Blues and the Sharks and Knights, all on NBCSN. But let's first start with the runner-up from last year, the Boston Bruins. And they are certainly going to have to deal with that Stanley Cup hangovers. They were close, but no cigar. Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, a loss. Do they break up that incredible top line? And what does the youth movement mean as they've signed some bridge deals now and they start looking to the future? For the answers to these questions, let's bring in Joe Haggerty from NBC Sports Boston. He is the Bruins insider. You can find him at Hacks with Hags on Twitter. So let's first start out with that Game 7 hangover, Hags, because when the Caps came back from the 2017 season, they actually said it was more of a hangover from that loss to Pittsburgh than what they experienced last year, having won the Stanley Cup. What do we anticipate from Boston this year?
Yeah, I anticipate that there is going to be a hangover. The Bruins have called it a wall that they anticipate they're going to hit during the regular season. I think some of it is about the Game 7 still lingering, the bitterness, the what-ifs, the what didn't happen, that pain that comes from coming so close to winning and ultimately losing. And I think some of it is also from playing 24 games in the postseason, going that deep into the playoffs, having such a quick turnaround during the summertime and getting ready for the regular season this year. I think all of that's going to have an effect on them. Now, they've got a deep team. They've got quality goaltending. They've got some great players, so I still think they're going to be pretty good. I think they're probably going to get off to a pretty good start. But I do think late down the stretch, January, February, March, and then into the playoffs, I think that's when you're going to see this hangover take effect. And it's going to be interesting to see how much gas they have in the tank at that point. Because when you look at what teams do in the first round, the year following them being in the Stanley Cup final, the Pittsburgh Penguins notwithstanding because they won back-to-back, they don't do very good the following season, the postseason. It's going to be interesting to see if the Bruins follow that pattern.
Yeah, we certainly saw that with the Caps here in D.C. last year when there were a couple of times where they went for the extra and it just wasn't there. They rode Tuukka Rask in Boston for years, 62, 65, 67 starts. Now they're going into a platoon now. Last year, 45 starts. Yaroslav Halak had 37. It seemed to work. It got them to a Stanley Cup. Do you anticipate the same this year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar. Maybe Tuukka plays a little bit more, maybe up around 50 to 55 games. I think part of that was by virtue of Yaroslav Halak being so hot coming out of the gate in his first year with the Bruins, and Tuukka Rask really struggling in the first month of the season, something that happens a lot with him in October, that it was more balanced as far as the playing time goes. But if Tuukka comes out and has a stronger October, plays better, it might be a little more like 50-32 split between the two goaltenders. But I do think you're going to see Yaroslav Halak play a lot, because I think what the Bruins have found is when they manage Tuukka Rask's starts, when they keep him in right around 50 to 55 games played, that allows him to have plenty left, both mentally and physically, when the playoffs start, and they don't burn him out during the regular season. He's not one of these, franchise goaltenders that's going to be able to play 65, 70 games and still be effective into the playoffs. That's just not who he is. The Bruins have figured that out, and now they're moving forward with Halak and Rask.
Having sustained success in this league is tough. You have to have a great core and then young guys coming up. The Bruins do have that, and they locked up a few of those guys to bridge deals this year. Charlie McAvoy gets 3 years, $4.9 million. Brandon Carlo, 2 years, just under $3 million. So there's the decision, do you go with these bridge deals or do you try and build long-term with these guys? You got Coyle and Krug coming up next year. Do you anticipate this to be a trend with Boston trying to work almost year-to-year or 2 to 3 year patterns rather than going long-term?
Yeah, I think so. Especially, there's some unique circumstances here. I think with Carlo, that was kind of the market for players of his ilk, those shutdown defensemen that don't put up big offensive numbers. That's kind of what he was going to get. With McAvoy, people seem to forget sometimes that he's missed almost 50 games in his first 2 NHL seasons with injuries. He's never really put together a dominant season. So I think there was a lot of hesitation, and rightfully so on the Bruins' part, to locking him up to some 7 or 8 mega money deal for a long term, because it just doesn't make sense until they see that out of him. But in general, I think that's what they're going to do because that's what the salary cap is demanding right now. They have such a deep team that they want to keep together. I think they're going to have reasonable contracts from these young players moving forward. And you mentioned Coyle and Krug, and they're absolutely going to be big decisions at the end of this year. And you can also put a young player, Jake DeBrusk, in there as well. Scored 27 goals last year. He's going to make a lot of money as a restricted free agent. So that's another one the Bruins are going to have to figure out.
And yet we haven't even named their big three, the big guns for Boston, who you always think of in Marchand, Bergeron, and Krejci. But now you look at who's going to be the Bruins' X factor this year. And we did a Twitter poll, and Charlie Coyle, 73% of those voting at NBC Sports Boston picked Charlie Coyle as the X factor. Is that something that you agree with?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He has been fantastic in this training camp. Big, strong, fast, physically dominant. Looks like he's primed for a big year. We just talked about he's going to be a potential free agent at the end of this year. So also talking about a player that's in a contract year that could have a lot of money on the line. So there's a ton of motivation for him. And I think also playing in a system in Boston that's catered a little bit more towards scoring goals, to being an offensive player, to producing, might allow him to put up bigger numbers than he did with the Minnesota Wild. But I think just look at what he did in the playoffs last year. I think it was 9 goals and 17 points in 24 games. He was one of their best players, and I think the Bruins expect he's going to take that huge performance in the playoffs and use all those skills, use all that strength to have a huge year as the third-line center and to bring that balance to the scoring that the Bruins need beyond that top line that you mentioned of Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak.
There's been tiers in the Atlantic Division. It's been Tampa up here, Boston and Toronto right there, and then sort of everyone else. Florida made all the big moves this offseason. All of a sudden, they're potentially a contender. Montreal has been hanging around. Can anyone break up the big three?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there may be another team that gets into the playoffs. There obviously, I think, will be. I think Montreal is another team that you can look at as a fourth that may end up being a wild card team. Certainly, I think Florida has the talent to be able to make a move. I don't see as much out of teams like Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit. But when you look at the quality, the youth, the ability, the coaches that coach these teams, the goaltending, up and down the lineups, these are among the strongest teams in the NHL. I just did the power rankings today for the season opener, and they are all in the top 5 in my NHL power rankings, Toronto, Tampa, and Boston. So I think it's going to continue to be an extremely top-heavy and powerful Atlantic Division with those 3 teams that nobody else is going to crack those 3. It's just going to be interesting to see how they finish 1, 2, 3. I'm mighty curious to see what Tampa's going to do coming off angry after last year's embarrassing loss in the first round.
Yeah, that's going to be very curious to watch if anyone can actually challenge the Lightning this year. Joe Haggerty, the Bruins insider from NBC Sports Boston. You can find him on Twitter at HacksWithHags. Thanks so much for your time.
You got it.
All right, let's bring in now Alan May to talk about the Bruins and kind of break down why that top line and how that top line, other than just incredible talent, but what makes them so special, Mayday?
Well, all 3 players are incredible skaters. All 3 can really handle the puck. They're excellent passers. They all have a gift of being able to score goals. Pastrnak being the best goal scorer, the best shot. Brad Marchand has developed into the best all-around players in the National Hockey League on the wing. And you look at Patrice Bergeron, the best defensive player the game has ever known, the best all-around player. He's won 4 Selke trophies, ties him with Bob Gainey. But when I look at these guys, they're so in sync. They know where each other are at all times. They don't shirk their defensive responsibilities. Their sticks are always available to receive a pass, to make a pass, to take a shot. When you look at the chemistry they have, they annihilate teams. And because of their excellent positioning, their skating ability combined with that, they're really unstoppable when they're on the go. If you can get them the puck, they're going to do a great job. And as we see in the clips that we're about to show, they're always slick. Just cup the puck, move the puck around the ice. They know how to get into the open lanes, and you're going to see here as they separate to go across. Brad Marchand does not receive the credit he deserves for the silky smooth mitts that he has, the passing ability that he has. We've always known about Bergeron. The excellent speed of Marchand, I think, puts this team over the top. But now you look here, driving to the net. Everyone's in position. Brandon Carlo up top. As the puck goes back to him, that's just a no-brainer, making the goalie move post to post. So once again, it's all about skating ability, the ability to move the puck on the fly. Sticks are always available. They take advantage of teams when there's a box or a hole in the middle of the ice like we saw there. Zdeno Chara comes in here and they manipulate. So you don't know whether they're going to move that puck, shoot it, go on, hang on to it for an extra second, and then make the pass. So they're so dangerous because of the abilities that they have at such a high-end speed, and then you combine that with their puck-moving ability. They're really one of the best lines in the National Hockey League, if not the best right now.
All right, Alan, thanks so much for that. We will check back in with you for each one of these teams as we go throughout all the regions. Next up now, we go out west to California. Check in on the San Jose Sharks as they kind of move into a new dimension. There's no more Joe Pavelski. He's just part of that lore of that team. So now Logan Couture becomes the leader of that team. Is he going to have a superstar year? Speaking of superstars, Erik Karlsson has finally made his decision, 8 years in San Jose. So for more on the Sharks, we welcome in the TV voice of the Sharks, Randy Hahn at NBC Sports California. You can find him on Twitter at SharkVoice. And thank you for setting an alarm. It is early out on the West Coast as we start talking about the San Jose Sharks. What's going to be the bigger impact on this team? You lose Joe Pavelski, how tough he was in front of the net, his knack for scoring big goals, or having Erik Karlsson back now for 8 years?
Well, those kind of work in tandem, don't they? The Sharks certainly lose a lot of goals in Joe Pavelski's departure from San Jose to Dallas, no question about that. And you would look to that back end. Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, two of the most prolific defensemen in the NHL when it comes to offense, perhaps picking up some of that load. But I think it's going to take much more of a overall team effort to get back those 38 goals that Pavelski provided last year. And it's not just the goals that Pavelski scored, it's the timely goals that he scored. He always seemed to have that knack for scoring a goal when you needed it late in a game to tie or in overtime to win. So the absence of Pavelski is going to be tough, but the Sharks are going to have to power through this. And here in Las Vegas tonight, they're going to be without Evander Kane, unfortunately, who figures to be a big piece in that effort to make up that goal scoring. He had a great year last season, a 30-goal year for the San Jose Sharks. He's suspended, as you know, for the next 3 games after that altercation with an official in the last preseason game here in Vegas on Sunday night. But I think you have to look at an overall team collective effort by the Sharks to make up for Pavelski's absence, both on the scoreboard and from the leadership standpoint in the dressing room. And that's where Logan Couture comes in now, assuming the captainship.
Yeah, let's go right there with Logan Couture. I've always loved him as a player. He had a great playoff last year. I don't think many people would realize he actually led the NHL in playoff goals with 14 despite not going to the Stanley Cup final. He's entering the first year of this big new deal, and he's named captain. Is this the year that his career maybe goes next level to true superstar around the NHL?
It quite certainly could, and I think you really, if you look at the postseason, he's already gone to next level. You mentioned that he led the NHL playoffs in goal scoring last year, despite the fact he didn't go to the final. And in 2016, when the Sharks did go to the final, he led the whole NHL in points that playoff year as well. This could be a huge year for Logan, and the Sharks are certainly counting on that. He's surrounded by a great supporting cast. We mentioned Kane and others like Timo Meier and Tomas Hertl and Kevin Labanc and on at the forward positions, not to mention Joe Thornton as well. So Couture's in a very good position to lead. He's in a very good position to have maybe outside of the Bay Area and outside of the Pacific Division that maybe gets tucked away and hidden a little bit in Eastern time zones, a breakout year. But he's really been having breakout years for the last 2 or 3 years.
Are you hinting at an East Coast bias? I think that's what I heard there, a little bit of an East Coast bias.
Unheard of, unheard of.
I know, of course. Demons have been exercised over the last couple of years. 52 years later, the Blues finally win a Stanley Cup last year. It took 44 years for the Caps to win it the year before that. Is this the year the Sharks exercise their demons?
Well, they certainly hope so. I've been around for 28 of those years. I would love to see it. This is a team that's certainly different. You go year to year, and every team's a little bit different. And when they start out tonight here in Vegas and end up in April with the finale of the regular season, hopefully heading into the playoffs, this Sharks team figures to be different then. There are a number of young players that didn't make this team that have gone to the San Jose Barracuda in the American Hockey League, who now have the opportunity to grind it out in the AHL and find their way back into this lineup. And you figure there's going to be opportunities throughout the year. There's going to be injuries and things like that. As it is, the Sharks will start tonight with 3 players playing in their first NHL games, including defenseman Mario Ferraro, a 22-year-old who played in the national championship game last year for UMass Amherst, along Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche. So exciting for those young men. A couple of other 21-year-olds will play as well for the Sharks tonight, partly due to the absence of Evander Kane and some other injuries in the lineup as well. But Doug Wilson, the general manager, has done a tremendous job with this franchise of finding a way to get this team into the playoffs repeatedly. If the Sharks advance to the postseason again this year, it'll be the 15th time in the last 16 years. So they don't draft high. They're never a lottery pick team. They are a team that has to improve through crafty drafting and development and key free agent acquisitions or trades, as we've seen in the case in the past years with Joe Thornton and then Brent Burns and most recently Erik Karlsson. This is a team that is going for the cup. As you mentioned, they have not won the Stanley Cup. They've been in the finals, but they've never claimed that prize. And I know for a fact that Wilson, Pete DeBoer, the head coach, and the rest of this group feel that they have the potential this year, once they get into the playoffs, to get on a run like they did last year, but a little bit further.
Yeah, sounds very familiar to the story here with the Caps over the last couple of years. Brody Brazil at Brody NBCS did this Twitter poll: who will be the Sharks' X Factor this season? And Timo Meier just edges out Erik Karlsson, and that would have been my choice. Timo Meier kind of plays a little bit under the radar there in San Jose, but another guy who comes up with big goals at big times. Is he your X Factor for the Sharks?
He certainly can be one of them. The Sharks have a number of players that fit into that category, but Meier is certainly near the top. He's another power forward like Evander Kane, perhaps not as brash and get under your skin type power forward as Kane is, sometimes to his detriment, as we saw with this suspension in the preseason. But Meier has tremendous potential. He's just added a layer to his game in the last year or two, coming out of his entry-level contract, signing a new deal, and he's just a tremendous talent. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got hockey sense, he has hands, he has the entire package. So Meier certainly, I would agree with Brody, could be one of those X-Factor players for the Sharks this year.
So you're joining us live from T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, where the season opens up tonight. We know the pregame festivities are going to be wild there, but then you got two teams that don't really like each other, and there's probably some lingering effects from the playoff series last year. What can we expect on the ice tonight?
Well, first of all, thank you, NHL schedule maker. This is a brilliant stroke. The Sharks opening up their season here in Vegas tonight for the night's opener, and then on Friday, these teams do it again in San Jose for the Sharks' home opener. As I said, I've been with this franchise since year one, and up until last year, the Sharks' #1 rivalry was the LA Kings, and that dates back to the baseball rivalries and basketball and football in the Bay Area, the NorCal-SoCal rivalries, if you will. But in a span of 5 minutes, when Joe Pavelski went down in Game 7 last spring, the rivalry flipped. And the Sharks' #1 rival right now, without doubt, is the Vegas Golden Knights. And I would suggest that at least right now, as we go into the beginning of the season tonight, this is the top current rivalry in all of the NHL. The teams don't like each other. The fans don't like each other. This is just a rivalry that has emotions bubbling on the edge at all times. I am looking forward to a tremendous game tonight. There were 20,000 people, and I mean in the seats, here on Sunday night when these teams played that preseason wrap-up game, and the atmosphere in here was electric for a preseason game. It gives you an idea of what these games mean between these two teams, and factor in, they'll play 4 times, but all 4 of those times will occur before Christmas. So these games are very important points-wise as well within the Pacific Division. If you subscribe to the theory that these two teams and probably Calgary are the big three in the Pacific and will be fighting out for supremacy come the end of the season and that number one seed.
Well, you have sold that game tonight. I'm certainly going to be watching. It should be a lot of fun. I think the NHL nailed it with both the games to open up the season tonight on NBCSN. Randy Hahn, TV voice. Oh, we've got an alarm going off. I better let you go. TV voice of the Sharks. Thanks so much and good luck this year.
That's the alarm that tells me I've been on TV too long and I need to get into a casino.
Yes, I'm with you on that. Best of luck there as well. All right, there's Randy Hahn, the voice of the Sharks. Let's bring back in now Alan May to talk about Erik Karlsson. And Mayday, we've talked about him over the years. Great offensive defenseman. Not necessarily so great on the defensive end of things, which is what he's paid to do. But what do you like about his game?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I call him an offenseman. I don't use the term defenseman to describe him at all. He's one of the most prolific offensive defensemen in the National Hockey League. He's all about moving the puck. He's elusive. He's shifty. He's got great vision. He knows how to get the puck through to the front of the net. On the other side of it, when he doesn't have the puck, his body doesn't get into the right position. He's got to take some pages from Marc-Edouard Vlasic, the defensive stalwart with the San Jose Sharks. So I'm all about the offense with him, the way he plays the game. You know, the best way for him to play defense is to have the puck on his stick, moving it, getting up the ice, jumping into holes, and taking shots. And you're going to see how he moves the puck around. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got great vision. You see how, you know what, he jumps in the play. He's coming back, trailing the play right there. He knows where to go. He's got great footwork. And just as he goes towards the front of the net, stick is on the ice, waiting for the pass the entire time, draws the defender over to the other side. They're not worried about him. They're supposed to take this pass away. But you see how people worry about him. He's such a threat out on the ice. It just makes it too easy. So as a decoy there, but him, it's all about rush. It's all about moving the legs, puck movement, getting the puck to the right guys, and then joining the rush, getting up ice. So he's like a second centerman. He plays a 200-foot game, but it's usually in the one direction. He gets this puck up the ice, he gets back, he knows how to hold the line, have the stick ready at all times. But because he's able to create, you know what? He just makes the game easier for the real offensive players on the team up front. You know what? I'd love to be his defensive partner because I just throw him the puck at all times. But you see the patience right here, the puck placement, all of the little things he does. But now here we're playing defense. He's on the wrong side of his defender here. He's got to have that middle lane. There's no way this should happen. He doesn't use strength on that. He gets muscled off the puck. One of the reasons why he's struggled defensively there is he's been unhealthy with foot injuries, with groin injuries. You know what? Plays like this can't happen. You've got to protect this puck, keep it away from your net, protect that middle lane of the ice. You can't be careless with the puck. So that, he just gives up a cookie right there that shouldn't be given away. As long as he's played in the National Hockey League, he shouldn't be making those types of plays. So I think the San Jose coaching staff would want him to have more defensive awareness, get his body on the right side of the puck, always between the puck and his net, help the goaltenders out that way, sticks in lanes. So you've got to live and die with the way he plays. But you know what? As long as he's moving the puck and helping them play in the other zone, he's a threat, and he keeps them as one of the top teams in the National Hockey League.
And for all of that, he's rewarded with 8 years and $92 million. We'll check back in with Alan in just a minute. Let's take a look now around the league at some of the big stories as the National Hockey League season gets ready to start tonight. And we've got labor peace. No disruption in the near future. Who's going to win the big trophies? Who's taking home the hardware individually? And who's going to raise a banner to the roof when the season is over? All of those questions can be answered by our next guest. It is Jeremy Roenick from NBC and NBCSN. And JR, let's start with the fact that they have no changes to the CBA, which means no disruptions in hockey, which is absolutely best case scenario. Did that surprise you at all?
Thank goodness, tell you the truth. And it actually does surprise me a little bit because with the contracts that are going around the National Hockey League these days and obviously guaranteed contracts and the cap going up as fast as it's been going, it is kind of amazing that that they all like the way the National Hockey League is moving. I love the way it's moving. I think the parity is amazing. The talent is amazing. I think everybody's winning in terms of the financial aspect of hockey. And the fact that there's 10 more years of labor peace, we absolutely celebrate that. I've been involved in 3 different labor disputes, missed 2 seasons because of labor disputes. Nobody wins from it. The fans get frustrated. The players get frustrated. This is a very, very good time for the National Hockey League, and I'm glad that 2020 is not going to lead to another shutdown and obviously not keeping this, momentum going in the National Hockey League. I think we're at a good state.
Yeah, absolutely. How much closer could Ovi be to Gretzky's record if he didn't lose a season and a half to disruptions here? JR, is it nice to see also some of these young players, because the league is so young, the biggest superstars in the league are the youngest players now in the league. Good to see them involved in this whole process?
It is really good. It is their sport. I mean, it is them who we come to watch. It's them that put the marketing dollars on the table. That's the people that pay all that hard-earned money to go watch them play. They need to have their voice heard. They need to make sure that they become a big part of the process because obviously if they're not happy, you're not going to get as good a product. But we need more involvement, and I think it's about time now because of the involvement of the young kids and what is going on with the players in the league. I think that's a lot of the reason why you see a lot more peace and a lot more parity and a lot more exciting play in the National Hockey League. It's I can't say it enough. It's a healthy league that I think is only getting better. We got another team coming in 2 years with Seattle that says great things for the National Hockey League.
I don't know if any team wants to be your answer to this question because of the curse of the President's Trophy, but can anyone challenge Tampa in winning the President's Trophy this year?
I don't think the way that Tampa rolled through the season last year, I don't see that happening again. They will be very good again, and I think they're going to come out with a little bit of an edge, seeing how embarrassed they were in that first round knockout 4 or 5 months ago. So for me, I think Washington is going to be really good. You're going to have the Colorado Avalanche are going to be really good. The Boston Bruins are going to be really good. I still think Tampa might be that team to beat, but I don't think they're going to run away with the President's Trophy the way they did last year. That was pretty inspiring and pretty shocking.
You didn't mention Toronto. I don't know if they're going to let you back into Canada after failing to mention them, but I'm fine with that right there.
Listen, I mean, we've talked about Toronto many, many times. I think until they prove us wrong that they can't beat Boston, then we will talk about them at another date.
Let's look at some of the individual players. Last year, Kucherov wins the Hart. Vasilevsky wins the Vezina. No real surprise because of how good Tampa was. I think Nathan MacKinnon can win the Hart this year. I don't know if anyone could beat Vasilevsky. Who's your choices for those 2 big trophies?
Yeah, that's going to be really tough. I think you just named the guy that pops off the page to me, and that's Nathan MacKinnon. He's just skirted the edges of that trophy the last couple years. I think his playoffs last year, one of the best playoffs that we saw in the playoff season. I think he's coming in again with a better team, better excitement in the city, and I think this kid is just going to have a monster year. I think he probably very, very much so has the high probability of winning that Hart Trophy, especially if he stays healthy. On the goaltending side, I don't see Vasilevsky moving off that podium right now. Bishop might be that guy in Dallas, with Dallas having a much improved team. Obviously, Joe Pavelski now down there. Some of the two best defensemen in Klingberg and Heiskanen back there. Dallas is going to be a really good team this year, and if Bishop can again have another big year, he could finally crack that Vezina trophy there, and it's going to be really interesting though. This league is wide open. I think you try to see who's going to win. Everybody talks about whether St. Louis is going to be able to repeat. Will Washington get back there? Will Tampa get back there? This is the first year, guys, really, where I can honestly say I have no clue and couldn't even give you a really good pick of who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup. That's how exciting this year is going to be.
And that's what makes the NHL so great and different than other sports. One more quick hardware question. Is this the year an American like John Karlsson can win the Norris?
Listen, I think John Karlsson has really gotten the raw end of the game here. He's been extremely consistent. He's played great hockey over the last couple of years, and he hasn't even been nominated for the Norris. I think that's an absolute travesty. I think they've gotten it wrong. I was actually one of the voters last year for the Norris Trophy, and I picked him without question being as one of the top 3 finalists. So I think he's definitely underrated, underappreciated, and with the team that they have here in Washington this year, they're right behind me, getting ready to start tonight. He looks poised and ready to have another big year. I would expect for him to be on the Norris Trophy and get a little bit more respect that he hasn't gotten over the last couple of years.
Give me a player around the NHL, not one of the big superstars that we all know, not a Connor McDavid, but what's one player that not enough people are talking about or not watching closely enough?
Yeah, that's a tough question for me. I think I can give you a couple. I think it's too hard to name one. I'll give you one from each side. Tampa Bay just signed Braden Point to an amazing contract that everybody was like, how did they lock up a Braden Point for 3 years at $6.7 million? This guy does everything. He scores goals. He's one of the best defensive players in the National Hockey League. He's one of the most dependable players in the National Hockey League. He's electric. He brings fans out of the seats, and he's an all-around player. This guy is a guy that you got to watch, and he gets overshadowed by Kucherov, by Stamkos, but really he might be one of the most important players offensively for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you guys were talking about this guy earlier over on the West Coast, Logan Couture, who led the playoffs in goals last year at 14, and they were big goals, not just goals, but they were the most important goals of the series for the San Jose Sharks. Now being a captain, he does not get enough respect for how good of a player he is all the way around. Also, again, another coach, the coach's guy that can depend on him in every single situation. I played with Logan Couture. He's not a loud player, not verbal, but when he goes on the ice, he does his job as well as anybody. And if you're going to look for a young player to watch this year, yeah, you can talk about Jack Hughes, you can talk about Capo in New York, but for me, I can't wait to watch Cale Makar play a whole year. I think he's going to run away with the Calder Trophy easily this year. This is one of the most poised, one of the best defensemen that I've seen come up in the National Hockey League in a long time. So a lot of fun, excitement, and a lot of fun youth to watch this year. It's going to be great.
All right, clearly you're there at Enterprise Center. It's the Caps and the Blues, just the second time ever the last 2 Stanley Cup champs are meeting on opening night, which I think they should do every year. Should be a great atmosphere there in St. Louis.
It is. The banner's going to go up tonight. There's a lot of celebration. The city has never been more excited, and I'll tell you, it's the energy in this rink this morning with these 2 teams here. It's going to be one heck of a start. I heard you guys talking about the NHL got it right with the start of these 2 games, St. Louis, Washington, then San Jose, Vegas. Not only did they hit it right, but they knocked it out of the park. Grand slam. This is going to be one of the best starting nights that we've had in the National Hockey League for a long time.
No doubt. You want to sell your product. This is the right way to do it. Jeremy Roenick from Enterprise Center in St. Louis. Look forward to your coverage tonight, and thanks for your time.
Awesome. Enjoy it.
All right, let's move on now to the Chicago Blackhawks, who have a young coach who's almost younger than their superstars. He's that young. Can we have more career years from Toews and Kane, even at this point in their careers? And then they go out and bring a goalie in because they needed the help. Pat Boyle, the host of the pre- and post-game shows on NBC Sports Chicago. You can find him on Twitter at BoyleNBCS. Jeremy Colleton looks like he's about 22. He's actually 34 now. The team is going to start to be built now in his personality. What can be different this year with him in his first full season as the head coach?
Well, Rob, when Jeremy took over last year, it was November, and he implemented a new man-on-man defensive scheme in the defensive zone. And for guys like Brent Seabrook and Duncan Keith, who've been playing another system for 10 years, it was like trying to learn a foreign language on the fly. Did not work out well. So an emphasis on getting better defensively. The Blackhawks gave up the most high-danger chances 5-on-5 than anybody in the NHL last year, and they gave up the second most goals. So an emphasis in the first full year for Jeremy Colleton to get this team better defensively, improve on a penalty kill that was historically bad last year. And also, this is one thing he said to me several times this offseason, be tougher to play against. Add some grit. That's why they went out and brought Andrew Shaw back, and that's why they brought a guy like Zach Smith into the equation to beef up that fourth line, bring some edge to that game, and be difficult to play against night in and night out.
We'll get to the defensive side in just a second, but you have to ask about Toews and Kane, because that's where it all starts with Chicago. It's kind of like Ovi and Backstrom. They don't slow down. They just keep getting better and better, defying father time. Can they build off of their career years that they had last year?
Well, let's start with Patrick Kane first of all. Absolutely. This guy has been tremendous, Rob. When you look back at 2016, his Hart Trophy year, to current day, he tends to get better each and every off season, and you can put him down for like 95 to 108 points a year. Last year, he finished third in the scoring race with 110 points. He's got a performance guru who has an unorthodox approach to getting the most out of his clients here in Chicago. And Patrick goes down to Florida in the offseason to Darryl Belfry's camp, where some of the elite players in the NHL, like Austin Matthews, go. They break down tape. They share trade secrets. So when it comes to Patrick Kane, whether or not he can repeat the production he put up, don't worry about it. You can pencil him in to be in the top 10 pretty much every year. As for Jonathan Toews, this is something new for him. He had 81 points last year after a couple of really subpar seasons. He took it upon himself to get better, harder on the puck. His balance wasn't great a couple of years back. He's worked and elevated his game in the offseason, maybe taking a page from what Patrick Kane has done as well. And then, you know, we love those lists in the offseason. NHL Network put out the top 20 current centers in the NHL, and Jonathan Toews was not on that list. A guy who's won 3 cups, who's won gold medals, who's been a Conn Smythe winner. I asked him the first day of training camp this year, does that bother you that you were not on that list? And he said, absolutely. So again, here's a guy who's a top 100 player in the NHL of all time, and even he is looking for ways to have that motivation, and that's just an example of that. So to me, Kane's a lock to have that type of production. I think Toews is also motivated to follow up his career year as well.
That's interesting. I don't know that I agree with that list, but it also speaks to how good the young talent is around the NHL right now. As for the defensive side with Chicago, you said they gave up all those chances 5-on-5, so they go and sign probably the best story in the NHL last year, and Robin Lehner gets away from the Islanders, so he'll now be a tandem there with Corey Crawford. And then they bring in Calvin DeHaan on a move in the offseason as well. How much will that help?
Oh, it's going to help a lot. I mean, Olli Maatta and Calvin DeHaan are 2 defensive-minded defensemen, and there was just too much put emphasis-wise on offense when it came to the Blue Liners on the Blackhawks. They've had a full training camp with Jeremy Colleton and this system. I think the right pairings are going to help elevate the defensive style of this team. And both of those guys are going to see PK minutes as well. But you mentioned Robin Lehner. That was the surprise of the offseason for the Blackhawks. Look, Corey Crawford he's a top 7, top 5 goalie when healthy in this league. You go out and you add a Robin Lehner who finished 3rd in the Vezina Trophy voting a year ago, who's in the prime of his career, who's on a 1-year deal. And oh, by the way, so is Corey Crawford. I take Corey Crawford and Robin Lehner both on 1-year deals. I like my chances. I think you can argue that they're the best 1-2 goalie tandem right now in the NHL.
Interesting. Both guys under prove-it contracts right now. We'll see how that helps Chicago. As for a player that we maybe have not talked about, that is an X factor with the Chicago Blackhawks. So you put out who's the X factor this season, and Lehner ends up getting 48% of the votes. And I mean, clearly for good reason with how bad they were defensively last year. Is there another guy? Do you agree with this? Or is there someone else we're not even thinking about or that the fans haven't mentioned that could be the X factor for the Hawks?
Well, yeah, Rob, here in Chicago, there was a lot of excitement when the Blackhawks had the 3rd overall pick and they selected Kirby Dach, a 6'4", 200-pound centerman who they're looking at some point to replace Jonathan Toews. But I'm not going to put him as my X factor because he sustained a concussion. He's been in concussion protocol most of training camp, and he's going to start the year on IR. He will get that 9-game tryout before they decide to send him back to the WHL or keep him with the big club. I'm going to look at Brandon Saad. Look, Brandon Saad, in his first 3 seasons in the NHL, he won 2 Stanley Cups. He was getting top 6 minutes. They were calling him Baby Hossa here in Chicago. He is the reason they went out and traded Artemi Panarin to bring Brandon Saad to help elevate Jonathan Toews' game. Well, that hasn't worked out. Saad has been now put in a 3rd-line role. He's coming off 2 career-low seasons, At age 26, it's time for him to step up. He's making a lot of money. If you start getting production from that third line, you get that depth scoring, which we all know you need to end up hoisting the cup. You take some of the pressure off of Patrick Kane and you stop double shifting him night in and night out like they've done too often in the last couple of years. Look for Brandon Saad to be the X factor, to be motivated, to at times get some love on the Toews Kane line, and also to earn some of that $6 million per year that he's getting.
Well, Pat, I think the Metro is the most competitive division in hockey, but I think the Central by far and away is the best division in hockey, and that's not good if you're a Blackhawks fan hoping to get back into the playoffs. Do they have a shot?
I think they absolutely do, Rob. They have a shot. You look at, and I mean, we can argue the Metro or the Central. In the 6 years under this current format, the Central Division has put 5 teams in 4 of the 6 years. They did it last year, and I think it's going to be tough sledding. I mean, I look at teams like Nashville, Dallas, and Colorado to be among the elite in this Central Division. I think the Blues are going to suffer from a Stanley Cup hangover. It's different walking into every arena with a target on your back. We all know their story last year of how they kind of came out of nowhere. So I think it's going to be a struggle for them at times. They're going to get the best effort from their opposition every night. I think it'll be a battle between the Blues and the Blackhawks to get the 2 wild card spots. And I have Winnipeg and I have Minnesota on the outside looking in.
Very interesting. Optimism from Pat Boyle at Boyle NBCS. Covers the Chicago Blackhawks. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, Alan, the Blackhawks, it's wild to see how far they had fallen so quickly. Their special teams last year was interesting, though. The power play pretty good. Penalty kill was abysmal. Let's take a look at their special teams.
Well, the power play's always been good there, as long as Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Duncan Keith are on that power play. And then you add a new weapon the last couple of years, and Alex DeBrincat, who can shoot the puck just as good as any player in the National Hockey League. He's not quite as elite as Ovechkin, but you know what? He finds ways to get the puck off his stick. Incredibly quick, great shooting mid-height goals in the National Hockey League. And I look at all of these guys. Erik Gustafsson's one of the new guys. Everyone's ready to move the puck. Everyone's ready to take the puck at all times. You see how they move this puck across the seam and just make goaltenders move around. They get you looking. They get you puck watching. The entries are always excellent. They're high speed. Patrick Kane, you never know where the puck's going. Is it going low to high? They love to use the seam pass to make goaltenders go across. And because they have such incredible snipers, there's DeBrincat. You see how fast the puck comes off of his stick. And just moving around, moving this puck. Connor Murphy takes this puck. It goes down the half wall. And once again, you just have players in the right positions able to move pucks. But in front of the net, this is another area. This team isn't hard enough to play. On the penalty kill at 5-on-5, they're not protecting the middle lane. As you see here, they get caught. There's a gap in the middle at all times. It doesn't matter if it's a PK. It doesn't matter if it's 5-on-5. There's not enough defensive awareness. There's not enough gritty play, taking sticks away, taking lanes away, having your stick on the ice, being tough on your stick because they're so worried and consumed with offense and moving the puck down the ice. So completely opposite how they approach the game. I think they have such an offensive mindset that those defensive details, whether they're 5-on-5 or in a penalty killing role, they are not there. That's what Jeremy Colleton has to do. He's got to get this team thinking about how to play without the puck, 5-on-5 and on the PK, because if they don't, they're going to have another great offensive season, but they're going to lose game after game after game because of defensive details.
And that's why Colleton told Pat Boyle we need to be tougher to play against. But then again, every single coach in the NHL says we need to be tougher to play against. All right, let's take a look at another one of those teams that needs to be tougher this year. It's the Philadelphia Flyers, who bring in a new big-name coach in Alain Vigneault. They've got some great talent, especially the new guy that just came in Kevin Hayes. And then I don't believe I'm actually saying this, but they have a franchise goalie for the first time in like 3 decades. So let's bring in Chris Terrian, the Flyers analyst at NBC Sports Philly. You can find him on Twitter at CTerrian6. And let's first start out with the coach. Before we get to the goaltender, Alain Vigneault. What's the Vigneault factor going to mean to the way the Flyers play the game?
Well, that's a fair question, guys. I think when you look at it, Alain Vigneault has been a coach that's taken 2 teams to Stanley Cup Finals, the Vancouver Canucks and the New York Rangers. And I think the one thing that stands out with him is he's got the pedigree. He's a guy that got paid a lot of money to come in here on a long-term contract. He will immediately put his imprint on this team and how he wants it to play. The one constant, I think, when you look at both those clubs that he coached before, they had outstanding goaltending in the form of Roberto Luongo and Henrik Lundqvist. So a little different scenario for him with Carter Hart, and that, Hart is coming in now in his second year. He will be the starter. He doesn't have the long-term NHL pedigree that those other guys had when AV had coached them on those respective teams. But, he's got stuff here to work with. And he's somebody that the players are going to immediately have to reckon with. I mean, he's a coach that will have at least a year of free reign to make changes he wants. He will, at the beginning of the season, will also be an evaluation period for him to see the kind of team the Flyers are, where they're coming from, where they're at now. So I think he's got a lot of work to do, but I think ultimately with his presence and the accolades that he's brought with him, I think he's going to be able to leave a very, very positive mark on this team.
You could pack a small prop plane full of the goalies the Flyers played last year. 8 different goalies. It's been a familiar story for 3 decades in Philadelphia, and now finally they believe they have a franchise goalie in Carter Hart. Is he legit?
He, I believe, is the real deal. I've been part of many goaltenders here in Philadelphia, and we had all hoped that many of the new ones that came in my time became franchise goalies. Roman Cechmanek, Brian Boucher, very, very serviceable guys, NHL players. But Carter Hart comes in with a junior pedigree and the accolades and the strides he made last year. He comes in with a superstar mantra added to him already. That's what happens when you become have the accolades from the CHL, Western Conference Goalie of the Year 3 years in a row, CHL Goalie of the Year 2 years in a row. He's been able to deal with the media. He's been on the big stage now in the NHL, certainly the World Juniors, where we know how much of a microscope that tournament is put under. He has done an awful lot of positive things with his young career. And yes, I think that the one thing you don't want to see if you're the Philadelphia Flyers this year is an entire platoon of goaltenders getting wheeled out because of injuries or other issues that are unforeseen to a team. So that needs to be the position that had to find the stability. It did the second half last year. I will be guarded to say that, when you look at this, it's still a 21-year-old kid that is coming into a very, very hot market that has historically been very tough on quarterbacks and goaltenders and star-type talent. So, I asked the people here to be a little bit patient with them when a rough night does occur, but I think that they're in the long haul with a guy here who could be the goaltender here, much like a Carey Price has been in Montreal for a long time.
With that tough fan base who holds their players to a very high level expectation, a guy who shouldn't have any problems dealing with that is one of your big free agents this year in Kevin Hayes. Played a number of years on Broadway with the Rangers, a quick pit stop in Winnipeg. What's his calming influence going to mean to this Flyers team that's still developing and trying to really create a new type of look for the Flyers?
Well, he's a two-way player, and when you look at Sean Couturier and the amount of points he puts up, I know Kevin Hayes had I believe in the 50s in the points last year. Coots, a couple of years now, has had just amazing seasons. So, he'd be a second-line guy that comes in, can provide offense, he can play up and down your lineup. But really, if you lock him now into that second line, he brings a lot of good defensive prowess with him as well as the offense. So he comes into Philadelphia with a very, very heavy price tag, a lofty price tag for a player of his abilities in free agency. But that's what it costs teams now to get a guy that you really feel is going to bolster your roster and make you a long-term a better team. So, I'd forget about what he makes salary-wise, appreciate what he's going to bring to the table, and hopefully when he gets back healthy, one of the big reasons I liked Kevin Hayes was I felt he'd be a factor of a guy who could push Nolan Patrick, really get on his heels, or at least have Nolan Patrick play behind him and try to get up and earn it. That's not the case right now with Patrick being out on IR, but certainly Kevin Hayes comes in with a very good all-round game pedigree, and I think that's something that the Flyers are absolutely going to need, especially with their special teams in him.
it's not really a surprise as we take a look at our Twitter poll for the Flyers X Factor this season that you put out, that they chose the fans Carter Hart overwhelmingly at 75% of the vote. We already talked about how important his development is to the entire franchise, but is there someone else maybe that might be an X factor that we're not thinking about right now?
Well, I have him on the list, and I have to say it's Ivan Provorov. He did not have a great year last year. He struggled mightily at times, and it was not the player that we'd been accustomed to seeing the first 2 years. So we know what a great job he did in his rookie season and his sophomore year in Philadelphia. He had a lot of bumps last year. I think the one thing with him is that if he can get back to playing at that number one defenseman type of level, and now have more of a stabilizing partner back there that he can hopefully form with throughout the year. I think that having that lockdown number one pair, number one defenseman is absolutely pivotal to the team's success, to your goaltender's success. It's critical, and I really, really feel that a strong campaign by Provorov, him getting back into it. He got equipped with a new contract just before training camp. A lot of good things going on for him right now. I think he just needs to get back as the X factor to be the good, solid, strong top defenseman that the Flyers had drafted a few years ago. If he does, I think the Flyers season will certainly have a lot more positives to it if Provorov can get back on his game.
So the way I look at the Metro, and it's not because of a Washington, D.C. bias, but there's the Caps, and then there's sort of everyone else, and you mix up the bag, and we'll see who comes out, because it's a very tight division. Last year, Carolina finally reached expectations. The Islanders stunned people. They were expected to be the worst team, maybe even in hockey last year. The Rangers made big moves. The Flyers made big moves. The Devils made big moves. Where do the Flyers sort of land? Who's going to be the surprise team this year in the Metro?
Well, you guys have the Caps, but I think Carolina kind of pushed them out last year. So I'm going to put Carolina at the top just based on what have you done for me lately. Caps is still very much at the top of that division. You know, I think the Flyers actually have a chance to progress this year. If all things come together, the things we just talked about, Carter Hart has a very, very solid season. That's Provorov returns to form. The forward lines gel. Alain Vigneault gets his handprint on this team sooner rather than later. So I think there's a lot of intangibles. I think the Flyers can certainly be one of those teams that can climb. Another team looking at it probably has to be the New Jersey Devils. You know, they got the young talent, Jack Hughes, and I think Nico Hischier could be primed for a breakout season. So those are a couple teams. I actually look at the I-95 rival as perhaps the two teams in this division that could be the surprise teams this year in the Metro Division.
Interesting stuff. Chris Therien, the Flyers analyst. You find him on Twitter at CTerrien6. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks very much, guys.
All right, let's bring back in Alan now for a guy that was not mentioned when we talked about the Flyers, and that was James Van Riemsdyk, and he's been so important to that franchise for a long time.
Well, you look at all the things he does. He's going to get you 25 to 30 goals a season, maybe some more along the way. But one of the things that he does best, he's not the fleetest of foot. He's got excellent hands, 6'3", a great stick, uses his wingspan, has soft hands on the puck when he finds it. So he goes net front, uses his wingspan, uses the big body to get the pucks. You're going to see on this one, he's getting in the vision of the goaltender. He easily finds his puck. He's calm. Now watch the wingspan here and the soft hands, the touch to score that goal. He's got excellent vision down low. He's one of the most dangerous players there is in the league net front. Great hand-to-eye coordination, batting pucks out of the air, whether it's in front of the net or behind the goal line like that. But you see all those little things he does around the net. They are crafty. He shoots the puck between his legs a lot. He can swivel away from players down low. Excellent edge work. But when I think of James Van Riemsdyk, I think of this area, stick length from the net, and a guy that just slows the game down, takes a beating, but still finds a way to score goals. And one of the best players in the league at just finding and placing a spot. Watch this shot as we go here. He's got patience. The Caps defense are back way too far. They give him a lane. They go in. Goaltender's going to go down. He knows it. So it's about just putting this under the crossbar, which he does. That's not a hard shot. That's just a well-placed. That's about patience. That's about poise. And those are the things that he does well. I think he scored 36 or 37 goals 2 years ago in Toronto. They couldn't afford to keep with all these super contracts that they've been giving out over the last 2 seasons. So you look at what they have there. Under a coach like Alain Vigneault, who is an offensive guy, who plays a fast game, who wants the puck on player sticks, JVR is poised to have another great season for this new coaching staff.
All right, that leaves us with our reporter here in Washington, D.C. as we check in now with the Washington Capitals, who had an uncharacteristically long summer. Too long. Ovi continues to chase history. Backstrom says he's going to take a run at Gretzky's goal-scoring record. And then, is this Braden Holtby's last hurrah? Let's go down the rabbit hole, and we welcome in J.J. Regan, the Caps insider here at NBC Sports Washington. You can find him at JJ Regan NBCS. And let's start with that long summer. We all know the toll the Stanley Cup run took on the team last year. The tank was a little empty at times. I thought it was interesting when I talked with TJ Oshie on Media Day. He did say he felt like the Blues took what was rightfully the Caps' possession in the Stanley Cup. So I think that long summer, filling up that tank and wanting that cup back is going to inspire this team. How do you think that long summer helps or hurts the Caps?
Well, while I think nobody wanted to see the Capitals lose in the first round, I think it was actually going to be beneficial for them ultimately. At the end of the day, they ran out of gas in that series against Carolina. When they were the better team, they were clearly the better team, and on paper, they were the better team over Carolina. They lost because they just ran out of gas. They had nothing left in that Game 7. So I think the long summer is going to be beneficial, especially for a core that is getting older. Ovechkin, Oshie, Backstrom, all on the wrong side of 30. So I think that's definitely going to help them. Plus, as you mentioned, the motivation. This is a team that has won the Stanley Cup now. It is not, when is it going to be our chance? Now there's a different motivation there of wanting to get the Stanley Cup back. That plus the desperation of the contract years of Nicklas Backstrom and Braden Holtby. There's a little bit of uncertainty there. They know the window is going to be closed soon. It may be closed after this season. So that little bit of desperation could be good motivation for a team that is rested and ready to go for the new season.
We always joke that Mother Nature and Father Time are undefeated, but Father Time is being challenged by Alex Ovechkin because even at 33, 34 years old, he's still pouring in 50-goal seasons. I don't think he slows down anytime soon. What's your take on whether or not Father Time ever touches Ovi?
Well, you're right. He's given Father Time a run for his money there. What I liked about Ovechkin's season last year was that he was consistent throughout. It wasn't tapering off at the end of the year. He was one of the team's best players in the playoffs, if not the best player. He was like that throughout the entire season. The year beforehand, 7 of his goals came in the first 2 games of the season. So maybe you could see his goal totals inflated there. That wasn't the case last year. You know, I don't think we're going to see the precipitous decline that we've seen from some players where all of a sudden they're a 20-goal scorer as opposed to a 40-goal scorer. I'm not sure he gets 50 again, but I think he's going to be in the high 40s. I put him somewhere between 45 and 50 and challenging for another Rocket Richard trophy. But you're right. I don't think he's just going to fall off a cliff. He looks leaner in camp. He came up early in camp, and he's definitely someone who seems to realize that he has to change the way he trains during the offseason to be able to continue to perform at the high level because he's not a young guy anymore. You can see it in the hair with all the gray hairs. So he's someone who definitely understands that, and you're right. I don't see him just falling off a cliff, that production this year.
And that's why Nicklas Backstrom on the podcast last week said Russian machine never breaks. He's just not entirely human, so he keeps going on. Speaking of Backstrom, this is his final year of his contract. He's going to retire at Capital. That's not in question at all. Braden Holtby, on the other hand, is also in the final year of his contract. Just before we came on the air, the Caps waived Phoenix Copley, meaning Ilya Samsonov is now their backup goalie, meaning the future is starting to take place here. How much do you think this will be, if at all, a distraction throughout the season?
Well, you know, Braden Holtby was challenged before by Philip Grubauer. In fact, he lost his starting job going into the playoffs in what was ultimately the Stanley Cup run. So I think this will motivate him more than anything else. If you had to pick a couple players on the team who would be least likely to be affected by a contract year, I mean, Nicklas Backstrom and Braden Holtby would be at the top of that list, especially Braden Holtby. You ask him if he completes a shutout, 50-save shutout, and then you ask him out after the game how he feels. I'm just glad I helped the team win. If he got shelled for 6 goals and you ask him after a game, he says, "Wow, I just wish I could help the team win." I mean, that's it. He's you know, he flatlines. He's got ice in his veins. I don't think it's going to affect him. If anything, it's going to motivate him to try to fight to keep his job. But as you mentioned, the salary cap implications, they just may not be able to keep him next year. I don't think he's unaware of that. And he is human. So ultimately, we're going to have to see how it affects him. But Ilya Samsonov looks like the real deal. He looks farther along than I expected in preseason. I thought he could do with another year of development in Hershey, but he looked very good. So I think it's going to be a very interesting goalie tandem all year.
And if he is the backup all season, they need to get him about 20 games. That could be huge for his development and help towards next season. You put this question out, the Caps' X factor this season, Jacob Vrana had 24 goals last year in a breakout season, 79% of the vote. Another guy not on that list that I love, that I keep saying Caps fans are going to love, is Garnet Hathaway, because he does so many things. He defended a teammate the other night, a fight in Carolina. He's great on the PK. He blocks shots. He does a lot of it. If you like Jay Beagle, if you like Matt Hendricks, you're going to love Garnet Hathaway. Do you agree with the fans said and Jacob Vrana, or is there someone else that you think could be an X factor?
Well, I think Vrana can be. I think the offense this year is going to be a little bit front-loaded on those top two lines, more so than in the past with the loss of Brett Connolly and Andre Burakovsky in the offseason. So I could see him being a 30-goal scorer this year. He's just that good, and he puts that much work into his game. He's always one of the last guys off the ice. So I like him a lot. I like the way his game is going a lot. Garnet Hathaway, as you mentioned, he's part of a revamped fourth line. And what we saw in Carolina, yeah, Tom Wilson still got a little bit fiery in that game, but I think something that Garnet Hathaway does is he takes some of that pressure off of Tom Wilson to be the guy who always drops the gloves, which you need. Tom Wilson needs to be a top-line player. He needs to not be the enforcer, which he has been for the last few years. He's more important to this team now as a producer. So definitely I like your pick there. My pick would be Richard Panik, considering the role he's going to play on this team. The focus of the offseason was definitely to improve this team defensively. Richard Panik does that. He's going to be a huge part of the penalty kill. I love the way he played the penalty kill in the preseason. He looks like he could be just as important to this penalty kill as a guy like Carl Hagelin, who looked great in that position last season. So the fact that he's going to be so important on the defensive end of the ice, but also be the offensive focal point of that third line, which is now missing a Brett Connolly, who scored 20 goals last season, I think that gives him a huge role on this team. So he would definitely be my pick for the X Factor.
It seems inevitable that eventually Tampa's going to get there. Boston was there last year. The Caps and Penguins have represented the East a number of times over the last couple of years. If you had to pick the one team from the East to represent the Stanley Cup final, it would be?
Oh, the one team from the East. I mean, I'm going to pick Tampa every year until they prove me right. I have to ride that train. They are from top to bottom the best team, but do not sleep on the Capitals. They like the fact that they're going under the radar a little bit this year. And while all the talk is about every other team in the Metro and how much they improved, the Capitals are still top to bottom, the best team in that division. I could see them winning the division and being a sleeper heading into the playoffs. But, I mean, it's hard to compare that, on paper at least, it's hard to compare them with Tampa Bay.
It was a brilliant move getting Braden Point for the money that they did. JJ Regan, at JJ Regan, NBCS, covers the Caps. Thanks so much for your time.
Anytime.
All right, Alan, one player who is not mentioned as an X factor is Tom Wilson. And that's the guy that every other team in the National Hockey League is trying to find the next Tom Wilson, and there just isn't one right now. They don't build them like this guy. What makes him so special as his offensive game continues to grow?
Well, he continues to learn the game, and he learned so much from Barry Trotz, Lane Lambert, Todd Reardon in his career so far, and how he's playing the game without the puck. How he was used at the start of his career was absolutely the wrong way. It was so totally incorrect. But you look at what they've done now. Excellent skating ability. He's got good hands, great speed, the size, the strength, everything that he has there. He's got all the tools. Now you take to the fact that he's hanging on to the puck longer, making better plays. But most of his stuff starts with great defense. You hear, this is defense, finding a puck, stealing it, getting ready here, and just simplifying the shot. Not trying to bury it every time. That's just a quick shoot and release. And same thing, driving to lanes, getting open. He knows he's got to get to the net. And there's poise and there's confidence now that goes along with everything that he has. Here he goes. That's just, once again, catch and release, shoot the puck in stride. Those were things he wasn't doing at the start of his career. And it all goes back to this quick shot, being a great student of the game, watching Ovechkin, watching Oshie, even Troy Brouwer in the past, guys like that were shooting the puck from the power play spot. He's not going to get a whole lot of looks there, but I look at him to have a career year. Last year, he would have got about 28, 29 goals had he not been injured, had he not been suspended. And you look at what he's doing. He continues to grow as a player. He trains harder than any player on this team during the offseason. So I think what we're going to see out of him this year, we're not going to see major suspensions. He's going to play more games. He's going to be on that top line with Ovechkin and Backstrom. I expect all of his numbers this season, once again, to be career highs.
Yeah, think about what he did, and he missed 16 games last year. You spent your summer on the lake life like any hockey guy. No one watches more hockey than Alan May. You ready? You excited for a new season?
Absolutely. I can't wait. This offseason was way too long, especially after the great Stanley Cup finals we were able to enjoy a couple of seasons ago. And that was the shortest summer ever, and I'm grateful for it. And I'm hoping this year we can get back to that here in Washington.
All right, Alan May, we look forward to our coverage starting tonight, 7:30 on NBC Sports Washington, as we lead up to that opener between the last two Stanley Cup champions, Caps and Blues, on NBCSN. Thanks to Joe Haggerty in Boston, Randy Hahn in the Bay Area, Jeremy Roenick, Pat Boyle in Chicago, Chris Therien in Philadelphia, as well as J.J. Regan right here in Washington, D.C. It's October. Hockey is finally back, and we can't wait for the long grind of another NHL season. I hope you enjoyed our special stream here on the My Teams app as we get you ready for the NHL season with the NHL season preview. Again, it all gets going tonight. An absolutely brilliant doubleheader scheduled by the National Hockey League as well as NBC and NBCSN as we start the season tonight with the Caps and the Blues, the two last Stanley Cup champs. There was a great picture during the offseason when Vladimir Tarasenko had his buddy Dmitry Orlov spend his Stanley Cup day together. Orlov won it in 18, Tarasenko last year. They will meet tonight on the ice as the NHL season gets back underway, followed up by the WWE-style rematch between the San Jose Sharks and the Vegas Golden Knights. We cannot wait. So for everyone that joined me live, as well as all the talented people behind the scenes that made this all possible, thank you so much. I'm Rob Karlsson. Let's play some hockey.
The Blues are the Stanley Cup champions. The demons have been exercised.
This has been a bitter, hard-fought series. Get back in front, they score! The Knights have a 3-0 lead.
We worked fired up, and it was a great moment. If we don't want to play the last 10 minutes of the season, we have to just put every goal we got in the tank.
Pavelski for the drop. Oh, Pavelski was dropped. And the Sharks are on the board. Score! Hurdle! Unbelievable! To take the lead! This kid's on fire!
It was just amazing feeling. The fans helped so hard. It's not the end of it.
Centering pass, they score! Jonathan Marchessault!
Kind of a nice goal to remember.
Here we go, boys.
We did something amazing, but we're not done yet.
In he comes. Good going along. Scores! And the Sharks have come back to win the series.
Just somehow we did it on. The way it finished is kind of unfortunate for us. There's extra motivation. Gonna be good.